Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving into a case that I know has captivated many of you, the Gabby Petito case. It's been 2 years since everything happened, and with the recent Netflix documentary, American Murder, Gabby Petito, bringing these new details to light, it feels like the right time to revisit everything we think we know.
Yeah, it's a case that really got people talking, and the documentary definitely reignited a lot of, those initial feelings of intrigue and, heartbreak.
Exactly. It's hard to forget those initial headlines. Gabby, this young woman documenting her van life adventure with her fiance, Brian Laundrie, disappears. A nationwide search ensues, fueled by social media. And then Brian returns home alone, becomes a person of interest and vanishes himself. It was like watching a true crime drama unfold in real time.
Oh, yeah.
But for this deep dive, we're going beyond those sensational headlines. We're looking at what we can learn from recent articles, really examining the details leading up to that fateful summer of 2021.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to take a closer look at the relationship dynamics between Gabby and Brian, that controversial police encounter in Moab, Utah, and the Laundrie family's actions throughout the investigation.
There's a lot to unpack, so let's start at the beginning. You might be surprised to learn that Brian actually made a good first impression on Gabby's family.
It's interesting, isn't it? We often hear about those red flags, waving from the start. But in this case, Brian was described as polite, even a bit shy. Gabby's dad even mentioned Brian shaking his hand, looking him in the eye, all the signs of someone trying to be sincere.
Right, but then we have Gabby's close friend Rose Davis, who had a very different take on Brian.
Yeah.
She said from the start she felt like something was just off about him, that there was this darkness lurking beneath the surface. What do you make of that? Did Rose pick up on something that Gabby's family might have missed?
The Rose's intuition is important here. While Brian might have presented a certain way to Gabby's family, Rose was seeing the day-to-day interactions, the subtle nuances of their relationship. She mentioned Brian being particularly possessive and controlling, especially when it came to Gabby's job. He would disparage her work and colleagues, making her feel bad about having a life outside of their relationship.
And you can even see this controlling behavior in some of Brian's text messages. He called Gabby's job disgusting and even told her that she didn't deserve his love because of it. Those are some pretty harsh words, and they definitely reveal a troubling pattern of emotional abuse.
Absolutely. It's classic emotional manipulation, He's trying to erode Gabby's self-esteem and make her dependent on him for validation.
Yeah. And then there's the proposal. You would think that would be a joyous occasion, but even that seemed to be shrouded in secrecy. Gabby was hesitant to share the news, and Brian never even bothered to ask her father for permission. What does that tell us about the power dynamic in their relationship?
It's another red flag for sure. It's as if Brian was trying to control the narrative, rushing the commitment before Gabby could fully process her feelings or confide in her support system. Remember Rose's early observation that something felt off? Well, this strange secrecy surrounding their engagement definitely adds to that uneasy feeling.
Then there's the whole van life aspect. This was Gabby's dream, but Brian wasn't supportive at all. In fact, Rose even suggested that he saw the trip as an opportunity to isolate Gabby from her family and friends, further tightening his control over her.
Right. When we look back at these early details, a clear pattern emerges. Brian's actions weren't just those of a difficult partner. They were calculated steps towards isolating Gabby and solidifying his dominance in the relationship.
It's chilling to see how these seemingly small red flags could potentially foreshadow the tragic events to come. But before we delve into Gabby's disappearance, let's talk about that pivotal moment in Moab, Utah. This is where things really took a disturbing turn, right?
You're right. The Moab incident is crucial because it provides a glimpse into the escalating tension in their relationship and raises some serious questions about how law enforcement handles situations involving potential domestic violence.
So we've established that there were some, concerning signs early on in Gabby and Brian's relationship, but the Moab incident really brings those issues to the forefront. You might recall this as the moment the story really grabbed the public's attention because it involved a 911 call and police body camera footage that went viral.
Yeah, the Moab incident provides a stark look at just how volatile their relationship had become. It was August 12, 2021, when a witness called 911 after seeing a man slapping a woman. That man turned out to be Brian and the woman Gabby.
And the body camera footage from that police encounter is truly unsettling. You see Gabby visibly distressed and taking responsibility for the altercation despite having noticeable bruising on her face and arm. It's almost as if she's trying to protect Brian even though she's the one who's been hurt.
Yeah, that behavior, unfortunately, is a common response from victims of domestic violence. There's often a complex mix of fear, shame, and even a distorted sense of loyalty that prevents them from fully disclosing the abuse to law enforcement.
What's even more disturbing is how the officers responded. They seemed more focused on calming Brian down and didn't appear to recognize the signs of domestic abuse, even with Gabby's visible injuries and emotional state.
It certainly raised questions about whether the officers were adequately trained to recognize and respond to domestic violence situations. Could they have intervened more effectively? Could they have potentially prevented the tragedy that followed? These are questions that continue to be debated.
This incident really shook Gabby's family. They were devastated to see their daughter in such a vulnerable state and couldn't understand why the officers didn't seem to take her fear seriously.
It's heartbreaking to see those missed opportunities. The Moab incident underscores the need for better training and awareness within law enforcement when it comes to recognizing and responding to domestic violence. It's a reminder that these situations are rarely straightforward, and victims often need support and protection, not judgment or dismissal.
It seems like after Moab, Gabby might have started to realize the extent of the danger she was in. She even reached out to her ex-boyfriend Jackson, hinting that she might want to leave Brian.
That's right, Jackson shared that Gabby contacted him out of the blue, mentioning a fight with Brian and saying, "I have a plan, I think I want to leave him." It's clear she was scared and trying to figure out a way to escape.
Yeah, that must have been an incredibly difficult and confusing time for Gabby. She was likely wrestling with a mix of emotions, fear, confusion, maybe even a flicker of hope that she could break free from the situation.
Absolutely. Leaving an abusive relationship is often the most dangerous time for a victim. The abuser's control is threatened, and they can become even more volatile and unpredictable. It's a scary and uncertain path, and victims need support and resources to navigate it safely.
And tragically, that conversation with Jackson was the last time he ever heard from Gabby. She sent him a Snapchat a few days later saying that being in Jackson Hole, Wyoming reminded her of him. Then she tried calling him, but he missed the call because he was at work.
That missed call must haunt them. It's a stark reminder of how quickly things can change and how fragile life is.
Then on August 27th, Gabby sent a text to her mom saying, "I'm fine. I convinced Brian to go camp out in the woods so I can have the van to myself. It's what he wants to do anyway. I don't care. He said I could have the van if I paid him." It just seems so off, doesn't it?
Yes, the tone of that text is very different from her previous communications. It feels forced, almost like she's trying to reassure her mom while hiding her true feelings.
Gabby's mom felt the same way. She even asked if they were breaking up, and Gabby replied, "No, I just said I could make more money as a solo female van lifer. I'm driving to a campsite now." But after that, the communication went silent.
And then a few days later, Gabby's mom received a text from her daughter's phone. But it was strange. It referred to Gabby's grandfather by his name Stan instead of Grandpa. It's like someone else was using her phone.
That's what really sent alarm bells ringing for Gabby's family. They tried desperately to get in touch with Brian and his family, but their efforts were met with silence. Gabby's mom even texted Brian's mom, Roberta, but got no reply. When she tried again, it seemed like she'd been blocked.
This wall of silence from the Laundrie family only deepened the mystery surrounding Gabby's disappearance. And it raises the question, what did they know and when did they know it?
Gabby's dad tried contacting Brian's parents and even his sister Cassie, going as far as texting them that they were calling the police. Still no response. It's like they were closing ranks, refusing to cooperate with the investigation.
Their silence during this crucial period is incredibly troubling. It's understandable that a family would want to protect their own, but their refusal to engage in any way only fuels speculation and distrust.
But then, amidst the silence from Brian's parents, his sister Cassie starts talking. First in the Netflix documentary and then on social media.
Cassie's statements add another layer of complexity to an already convoluted story. She claims that she had been estranged from her parents for almost 2 years and was learning about the case from the news just like everyone else.
Which, of course, contradicts her earlier statements to reporters at the time of Gabby's disappearance. Back then, as she said, she and her husband were getting updates from her family.
Exactly. And then there's the detective's report that alleges Brian confessed to Cassie about leaving Gabby at a Wyoming hotel. Cassie denies this, claiming the detective miscommunicated what she said during their phone call.
It's a tangled web of conflicting narratives. You have Cassie speaking out while her parents remain silent, letting their lawyer do the talking. He dismisses the documentary as inaccurate and one-sided, suggesting that it deliberately omitted facts to create a specific narrative.
This lack of transparency from the Laundrie family is incredibly frustrating. It leaves so many questions unanswered and only adds to the pain and confusion for Gabby's family.
It's a heartbreaking situation, and the Laundrie family's lack of cooperation certainly doesn't help matters. But let's shift our focus to the bigger picture for a moment. This case goes beyond the specifics of Gabby and Brian's relationship. It highlights a much larger issue, the pervasive and often hidden nature of domestic violence.
You're absolutely right. Gabby's story, while tragic, is not unique. Countless individuals suffer in silence at the hands of their abusers, often hidden from public view.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in, the twists and turns of this specific case, but we can't forget that, at its heart, this is a story about a young woman whose life was tragically cut short, likely due to domestic violence.
Right? It's a stark reminder that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of their age, background, or social status. It often starts solely with seemingly small acts of control and manipulation that escalate over time.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of the signs. It's not always as obvious as physical abuse. It can manifest in those emotional manipulations we talked about, controlling behaviors, isolation from friends and family, constant criticism and attempts to erode the victim's self-esteem.
Exactly. Those red flags, no matter how small they might seem, should never be ignored. If you notice these patterns in your own relationship, or the relationship of someone you care about, it's crucial to reach out for help. There are resources available, like the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. Remember, you are not alone, and there is support available.
This case also brought up a lot of discussion about the role of social media in investigations. On the one hand, it helped bring attention to Gabby's disappearance and put pressure on law enforcement. But on the other hand, it also led to a lot of misinformation and speculation, which could have hindered the investigation.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Social media can be incredibly powerful in raising awareness and mobilizing support, but it can also amplify biases, spread rumors, and even compromise the integrity of an investigation.
It's like everyone became an armchair detective, and while some of that attention might have been helpful, it also created this chaotic whirlwind of information that wasn't always accurate or productive.
Right, and let's not forget the impact this case has had on the families involved. Gabby's family is still grappling with the unimaginable loss of their daughter, while Brian's family is left to deal with the consequences of his actions and their own perceived role in the tragedy. It's a stark reminder that these cases extend far beyond headlines and courtrooms, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and unanswered questions.
So here we are 2 years later with, more questions than answers. What really happened in those final days and weeks of Gabby's life? What did Brian's family know, and when did they know it? What does this case reveal about the complexities of family loyalty and the challenges of seeking justice in cases of domestic violence?
These are important questions, and while we may never have definitive answers, Gabby's story serves as a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in recognizing and addressing domestic violence. We need to be more vigilant, more aware of the signs, and more willing to speak up and offer support to those who might be trapped in abusive relationships.
This deep dive has only scratched the surface of a very complex and heartbreaking case. It's left me with a lot to think about, and I'm sure it has for you too. I encourage you to continue exploring the available information, form your own conclusions, and most importantly, use what you've learned to make a difference in the fight against domestic violence. Remember, even small actions can have a ripple effect. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.